We are at the very interesting point where, as the host of a podcast, I don't know how to introduce our next guest on this episode of What's Up Mainframe, which is being filmed here in a pub of a hotel in Slough in the UK. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I try, but OUGH in the English language is surely quite tricky. In any case, I'm joined by Niall Ashley, who is a podcast extraordinaire, but more importantly is a great member of the Mainframe community. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today, how that community is expanding, how people can get into it, and also just find out about this great guy. So welcome, Niall.
Thank you very much. And yes, Slough, it's the gem of the UK. Gem in the rough, for sure, but it's some sort of gem, I'm sure.
Well, we're here, and that's all that matters. Let's start with a little bit about yourself, because you've not been in the mainframe space too long, but
No.
I would say that you're a significant member of that and part of conferences, podcasts, as I mentioned. And you have some interesting background before that, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
so some people might say I'm making waves in this space, but I feel like
I didn't want to go there. Yeah, okay. We will get to that, but yeah, okay.
So I've not even got 4 years of experience in this space. Okay. I'm still the kind of the baby of the company and the relative newbie. Although I wear that, rather than with disdain, with honor. I'm learning, I'm kind of growing, and I love that experience. So I originally came from a background where I struggled with education. I don't do well with exams. I don't do well with kind of academic. So I went into a vocational route. I did an apprenticeship in aeronautical engineering.
Okay.
Obviously, as you know, there's a lot that's transferable there to the mainframe. But I just decided I needed a career change. And so after 4 years there, I decided to move into this new career. Uh-huh. I'm nearly at 4 years in this career, so hopefully it's...
Yeah, it is.
But I'm loving it. I
believe you're in a good spot. Yeah.
That's it.
And so you came in and you were doing mainframe security initially?
Yeah, so when we started, there was a scheme called Mainframer in Training at BMC Software.
Okay.
And they basically sort of said, does anyone have any kind of maybe preference towards their I guess they say their discipline. Yeah. And we had some people, so they said, I'd like to do sysprog kind of work. Some people said, I want to be a database administrator, DBA. And I love the idea of security. I love the idea of being the kind of digital bouncer to a system. and also I always had this mindset of, if you can do engineering, the whole kind of ethos of engineering is kind of efficiency, minimal input to maximum output. And if you're a hacker or a pen tester, surely that's the same mindset. You want to find any exploit and get the most value out of it.
Certainly.
And so therefore, to inverse that, if you're a good security engineer, you need to find any exploit and make sure there's the least kind of yield from each one, or no exploits at all. Not that that's necessarily an easy battle.
No, of course not. But
it all sort of tied together a lot more cohesively than I expected it to.
No, that's fantastic. And so you started that, and that was like a year-long kind of thing?
So I was there for 18 months, and then basically there was a load of my colleagues had started this new business. People might have heard of it, called Vitali. It's grown absurdly quickly. I don't think any of us expected it to be kind of where we are now. We all expected it to be a little hobby, and now I think we've got, with contractors, probably close to 80 staff. Very, very kind of successful already. And basically I just joined there, and I thought, I loved my colleagues at BMC. And so when they left, I thought, I just love being around these people. I want to continue that. And I keep doing a lot of the same work, but with a lot more to learn and a lot more, kind of opportunities to take things in a different direction. Yes. So maybe I didn't focus enough on the systems programming kind of foundation before.
Okay.
So now I'm kind of trying to maybe take a step back from security admin and
fill in.
Exactly, re-establish that.
Oh, that's fantastic. And at the same time, so obviously you were kind of connected with a company, and now you're with Vitali. But you found your way into some of the conferences and really the greater mainframe community. I mean, because honestly, I think we all kind of started in the same way in our respective companies. There's a training program, you learn something, but there are those companies that you do work for, and then there are those other ones whose products you may use, and it's going to conferences and things where you really establish the relationships to learn even more about those areas. So how did you get into the waves and the and
it was a really bizarre start. It just so happened that my very first day at BMC Software was the very first day of the GSE at the time. UK. It was at the time supposed to be an in-person conference, but it was virtual because of COVID. So I went into the office in Bromsgrove and I opened my laptop and I sort of said, "What am I doing today?" And it was, go and watch some of these live streams. And I was immersed. I was blown away. I learned so much. But I also thought, this is the sort of community that I really want to be involved in. I really want to kind of participate within. So I ultimately decided to kind of put myself forward to become a chairperson. I said, is this something that's viable? And thankfully I was accepted. So I then became a chairperson for 101. So I, even as early as the 2022 conference, I was kind of involved in the behind the scenes. And again, I loved that. And 101 to me was perfect because as a new trainee,
new to Z,
I knew what new to Z people might need to see or hear or learn about, and it was a learning experience. We made some mistakes, we could have done things better, but I'm not ashamed of that. I think that's my personal growth tied in with that learning. And then eventually it was still called Next Gen at the time, and Ricky West was kind of the person running that, and it was an initiative for new people. And we came up with this new brand, this new umbrella called Waves. And that kind of accommodates the 101 and the 102, so kind of your beginner and intermediate level. And then basically it all naturally evolved from there. We sort of said, well, we love what we're doing. Why not, instead of just having the one GS UK conference every year, why not do the odd little thing here and there? And we had a spring event that was hosted by Barclays, and then we've just done our summer surf, which is a virtual event. And I keep saying we need to have some winter pun, maybe winter tide or something, or the lunar, lunar tide. So I said, but we could keep doing this, and the engagement's been so positive. We have all these new to Z chapter groups that are kind of blooming across the world, and sometimes there's not enough resources or not enough opportunities for them. And now you have Waves, and you have Emma, the Eli Madison Memorial Apprenticeship, and there's so many opportunities. So there's never been a better time to start your career.
No, that's absolutely true. And it's fantastic how exactly some of these big conferences sort of break things down and have smaller events, because a lot of times, companies are not so willing to send a bunch of new developers to a big conference because their kind of expectations around presentations or whatever else. But I think the most value comes from establishing those relationships early on and using or leveraging those relationships to learn more about particular areas. So
and to your point, what we've seen with Waves is we had a lot of younger people, newer people to this space who were inspired, and they sort of said, well, say Niall isn't that much older than me, and then we had Alexander Sharsukov, and these people aren't that much older than me, and Katie Jahula, there's loads, and they said, well, if they can do it, why can't I? And so recently during the summer surf, we've just had a number of students present. We've got a number of students who've put sessions forward and are due to present at GS UK, and I love that because eventually, I know I'm only 27. I don't want to sound like I'm retirement age yet, but I am going to want to step back a little bit and let other people have that platform. I don't want to be domineering that. I want to share that, and I want to accommodate and facilitate that. And I'm seeing all these new faces come up and build their confidence, build their brands and their portfolio, and it's so rewarding. It's so much different and so much better than just being well, I presented the 18th session in 2 years.
Exactly, fulfilled my duties for 2025 and moving on, No, exactly.
As if it's obligatory,
It's just, oh yeah. Were you there? Yes, okay, good. No, so true. And I mean, I think, in Broadcom we have the Vitality program. We're also bringing people from different backgrounds, career change kind of thing. And I was just recently at Share in the US, and a bunch of those students actually came and they got to do the same thing. So there are kind of opportunities everywhere. And I think folks are making more of an effort to encourage that.
Well, I mean, we've got more and more people getting close to retirement age, and we've got more and more kind of acknowledgement of that. And the only thing that we can do is start kind of having these succession plans.
Yeah.
And the Vitality scheme, Waves, Emma, there's all these, Vitali has their New to Z scheme, and I think next Monday, as of recording this, Rocket Software are going to have their next gen scheme at Newbury in the UK, and everywhere's starting to realise, we need to get that new talent pipeline ready, and yet the opportunities are so plentiful. Yeah. And like you say, they're not just going, do we send them? They're there to learn. You send someone else to present, and they're there to learn, and maybe they happen to present as well. But I think a lot more companies are showing a real understanding that it can't be an afterthought.
No, exactly. Well, and ultimately it brings up the quality of these conferences as well, because if you have the people that always present, presenting to the same people, there's not going to be as much criticism or as much takeaway, diversity as well. Yeah. Whereas if you have these new audience members coming in, they're going to provide pretty honest feedback, and it's gonna up the standards quite a bit.
It's to me, I, for example, like I was talking about this with Mark Nelson recently, and this is a guy who's incredibly talented. Like he is one of the kind of the known, the big names of kind of RACF and Z-Secure. Yeah. But ultimately, what's the succession plan when he retires? Like I don't know who's going to take over from him. Whereas if I know, say in Vitali, I'll know who the kind of direct maybe successor to any given person is. Like if say Mark Wilson was to retire, who might step up to that mantle. And I think that's kind of the area we've got as an industry. Maybe it's a bit shaky ground. We have a lot of SMEs who are so phenomenal, but when they retire, and obviously they're going to want to someday, what's next? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where we have to take this seriously. I don't expect people to see me as like a RACF SME in less than 4 years of experience, but people have to be willing to say maybe Niall is learning and he's onto something, because and rather than maybe dismissing me due to age or something. Exactly. Because ultimately when these gurus leave, there is going to be this kind of big age gap, and someone's going to have to say, well, yes, he is, say, 20-30 years younger to whoever else, but he's going to have to step up to that mantle.
Certainly. So we've been talking about conferences.
Yes, sorry.
No. I mean, and it's a fascinating thing, and it's one of the many opportunities. But obviously, we're on a podcast now. You host multiple podcasts, a podcast now. It's been a couple, right?
Yeah. So I've been a guest on. Oh God, I think 4, 5. Maybe this is the 5th.
I'm a Mainframer.
Yeah. So there's Dive a Mainframer. I haven't been on I'm a Mainframer yet. Although maybe one day. And then I've been on Tech Charmit, Leticia's Tish Talks Tech, and then I'm sure there's another one that I'm probably forgetting. But that's just sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
But then
too much.
But then we did this sort of first episode of TMC, which was the Mainframe community. Uh-huh. And community is something I've been a massive advocate for pre-Mainframe career. When I was at Airbus, when I worked in aeronautical engineering, there was these kind of ERGs, employee resource groups, and there was all this work with corporate social responsibility, and I loved all of that, and I was partaking in that all the time. I've been a volunteer at multiple different Pride events for multiple different charities about mental health, suicide prevention, and so this is something I love to do. I love to inspire people and say we can all make a positive difference.
Definitely.
And TMC was great. The first episode, we didn't necessarily have this fully realised vision of where we wanted it to go. But then by the second episode, we sort of found not just our niche, but found our kind of flow. And we had this idea of wanting to interview people about basically what they've learned from different community groups and the kind of values, rather than technical knowledge, the values that we maybe in the mainframe industry ought to kind of take up and maybe give full kind of credibility and full kind of respect to.
Yep.
And we the team who work on it, so there's obviously myself as the host, then there's Alzares as the kind of the man behind the camera. We've got Keldon as the editor, and Nick Haverman helps organise a lot, and it's great. We as a team love the kind of, this style of podcast is just so human, and not to say others aren't, but because we're not asking about kind of career stuff as much as human interests, hobbies, you really just feel like by the end of that recording, you know that person on a whole different level in a way that you maybe couldn't have got just by, I don't know, reading their LinkedIn bio.
Exactly. Or going to a conference and having just the idle chit chat between sessions. And, certainly. No, it's fantastic. I've enjoyed several sessions of your podcast. Lukasz always makes fun of me because I don't actually watch lots of podcasts, which he always chides me for. Like, you're hosting one and you should, and I always like to say, well, I like to just have conversations with people.
I'm the same. Yeah.
And we don't need to script things. Everyone we have on is interesting in their own way, and ultimately that's kind of what we're trying to achieve, no matter what the podcast is, right? You may try to talk about products a little bit. Guilty, but ultimately it's the person behind it and trying to make a connection with them, and yes, they're going to convey some knowledge that you might take away.
And I think the reality is if you interviewed 100 people from the same business and asked them about the product, they'd probably end up having a pretty similar script, pretty similar technical specification. Whereas when you interview people and you ask them about them, where did you come from, what's your background and kind of what are your aspirations, maybe what hobbies you have, all of a sudden every single person is like a snowflake. They're all unique. And that to me is the joy of doing these podcasts is if I wanted to read technical specifications and I wanted to do technical stuff, I'd do that, but I want to learn about people. I think there's I think sometimes it's a shame, people can pass away and you can only afterwards realise they had this whole life that you'd never discovered, and it's only through maybe an obituary or a eulogy or something that you kind of realise there's this wealth of experiences and knowledge, and it's like, why are we waiting until too late to discuss that? And I just love that sharing, us sat at a table right now and just having a conversation.
In Slough.
Of all places.
So, what are your aspirations? So 4 years, and you've done so many things. You're so ingrained in the community and such a great figure there. But you mentioned sort of enabling those that are new to Z, the new developers, however you want to refer to them, coming in and kind of taking up the mantle with some of these conferences. But where do you see yourself?
I think, for me, I would love to be a security subject matter expert. I'd love for, in however many years it takes, to be seen on the same level as, maybe the Mark Wilsons, the Mark Nelsons, the Jamie Peases, etc., David Rossi. There's all these people who I kind of look up to in that regard. But I think from less of a kind of security discipline, kind of technical side, I think one of the things that I love is seeing myself be succeeded by people already. I look at, say Carl Presley's a great example. This is a student who we gave a scholarship to attend GS UK, and he attended, and he was like, I'm not sure. Well, at the start, he was like, I'm not sure. Maybe I still prefer web development and iOS apps. And by the end, he was like, no, this is where I want to go. I can see myself spending the rest of my lifetime in here. And people like Eddie Rowe and Joe Winchester and Ben Davis, we all kind of supported him. He then did a work experience placement with the IBM. He was then recorded as part of their Z Day event, their Z Skills Fest event recently. And then he's now done sessions for Waves, and he'll be doing another session at GS UK, and he's like kind of mentoring people
already.
I'm like, this is a guy who's like 10 years junior to me, 10 years younger than me, and I'm so proud of what he's achieved and so inspired by that. And I think this is one of the things that I love is, yes, obviously it's nice to have a good sort of financial situation, paying the bills and having a flashy car or whatever. But there is nothing more gratifying to me than knowing that you've made a tangible difference in someone's life. And I look at, a lot of the students who we supported, Simran, Nishka, Leonard, they've recently started their new to Z scheme at Vitali. So we've helped them kind of stand out from the competition and seek, get employment. And I'm working with Zaid and Mina to do the same thing. And there's so many students, and I look at them and I'm like, I'm rooting for you, and you're going to go so far. And however many years it takes, I'll have maybe moved on from GS UK's kind of 101, maybe even 102, maybe I'll be I don't know, one of the chair people for the security stream,
Yep.
but they'll come in, they'll be 101 or 102, and I'll look at them and like, I'm so proud, like you're going to surpass me. And that's just a beautiful thing, you know, like I guess it's like all parents kind of want to see their kids, you know, do better than them.
Do better than them, yeah.
And I don't know if I want the responsibility of changing nappies or having kids, but I definitely like the idea of
you
seeing,
like this?
Yeah, these
no,
people.
and that's fantastic. And I think you've seen this in the interviews you've done with people, and I know I get the feeling from a lot of colleagues in Broadcom and some of our customers that seems to be a general feeling within the mainframe community, actually, because everybody realizes where we are and how many of these experts, as we've mentioned, are kind of heading out, but the influence they have on so many people coming in behind them.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't say it as eloquently as you just did, but that's certainly the goal.
Yeah.
And I think this community in general really fosters that spirit, which is just fantastic. But it's led by people like you. And
I think it's just about recognizing, as bleak as it sounds, mortality. You know, like what legacy do we leave? You know, I have this mindset of kind of, you know, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like anything could happen at any point. You know, you watch Breaking Bad and this airplane falls out of the sky and no one expected that.
Yeah.
And if I know, but if any such thing were to happen, what do I, you know, would I have left the world in a better place than I found it? Would I have supported, you know, this talent pipeline to, as I say, to succeed me? And I just think, you know, if I was the sort of person who kept all my notes to myself and I was very much like, I want to be the single point of failure, well then as soon as I were to pass away or something, that is a failure, you know.
It is.
And actually, you know, if I really care about security, I want to see it succeed. Even if I'm not there, I want to see security be taken seriously and kind of improved upon, whether or not I'm there. And I think that's the ethos I try to encourage to people, is like, you know, it's that selflessness, it's that legacy, you know, it's that this is bigger than any one of us.
Yes.
This is the kind of the whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. So
most certainly. Fantastic. No,
a lot of waffle. Sorry.
No, it's just an important message, and I think really it's ethos of the larger community, just communicated so well. Niall,
Thank you.
It's been so great to have you.
Pleasure.
Oh
Honestly,
my gosh,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And, thank you for inviting me on.
Our pleasure.